Ancient warriors built strength through survival. From Spartan boys wrestling in dirt to Mongols firing arrows at full gallop, their training was life itself. Here's how 6 of history's deadliest fighters got battle ready. The hard way. Spartan warriors are synonymous with intense training. In Sparta, boys began military training at age 7 in the state-run Agoge school. Taken from their families, they lived in barracks and spent their days drilling and competing in physical contests. They trained barefoot to harden their feet and develop agility. They wore only a thin cloak in freezing winters and scorching summers to toughen up against the elements. Meals were deliberately meager, keeping them lean and hungry. If a boy wanted extra food, he had to steal it. And if caught, he'd be beaten not for stealing, but for getting caught. Every part of a Spartan boy's life was designed to build a tougher warrior. Wrestling and fist-fighting were daily staples. Picture a scrappy 12-year-old Spartan, barefoot and bruised, grappling a fellow trainee in the dirt while instructors bark orders. Discipline was extreme. At an annual ritual, youths tried to snatch cheese from a temple altar while older Spartans whipped them, turning pain endurance into a competition. All the while, they drilled in formation fighting. By their late teens, Spartan youths could form a flawless phalanx, a wall of shields and spears moving in unison through endless drills. And they did it all without a single barbell or weight machine. Spartan training built endurance, agility, and mental toughness, producing warriors feared across the ancient world. Romans, while Spartans prized individual toughness, the Roman legions focused on collective discipline and stamina. Roman soldiers' training started with marching. Lots of marching. Recruits were conditioned to march up to 20 miles, about 30 kilometers, in 5 hours with full kit. Picture a column of young Roman soldiers trudging under the hot sun, each hauling 80 pounds of gear. They even called themselves Marius's mules because of those heavy packs. This brutal regimen built endurance and unity. Physical fitness was non-negotiable for a legionary. Besides marching, recruits ran, leapt over obstacles, and swam when they could, exercising every muscle group. After building basic fitness, weapon training began. Instructors armed recruits with wooden swords and wicker shields that were twice the weight of real weapons. Soldiers hacked at tall wooden posts for hours to strengthen their arms and perfect their sword strokes. Only when a recruit could confidently fight that imaginary enemy, the post, would he move on to sparring with comrades. Instructors demanded excellence. Those who excelled earned rewards, while those who lagged behind might get their rations cut until they improved. Roman training emphasized endurance as much as strength. A hardened legionary could march all day, build a camp at night, and still be ready to fight. Daily tasks like digging trenches, hauling stones, and cutting wood were essentially strength training in disguise. Soldiers practiced battlefield formations so often that complex maneuvers became second nature even when exhausted. No modern gyms were needed. The Roman military lifestyle was a full-body workout that forged an army capable of conquering a vast empire. Samurai. In feudal Japan, the samurai class took a very different approach to forging warriors. Training was lifelong and deeply ingrained in their culture. Imagine a young samurai at dawn, kneeling in a dojo, practicing a sword draw and strike in one fluid motion, then repeating that motion hundreds of times until it was perfect. Samurai typically began training in childhood under experienced tutors or at martial arts schools. Their daily routine was filled with drills, countless swings of the sword, katana, to build precision and arm strength, and sparring with wooden swords to simulate combat. Various schools of swordsmanship existed across Japan, but all required discipline and endless repetition to master. Sword training was only one part of a samurai's regimen. They were also formidable archers. Samurai learned to shoot the Yumi longbow starting from youth, practicing both on foot and on horseback. Japanese bows had very high draw weights, so drawing them over and over built powerful back, shoulder, and arm muscles. Samurai archers practiced hitting moving targets and even firing from a galloping horse, a skill that demanded superb balance and core strength. Physical conditioning and martial technique went hand in hand. Samurai warriors engaged in grappling arts like jujutsu to handle close combat situations. Some practiced sumo wrestling to build explosive power. Even swimming was taught. Warriors learned to swim in armor, training to cross rivers if battles required it. Equally important was mental discipline. Meditation and Zen breathing helped samurai endure pain and stay calm under pressure. By adulthood, a well-trained samurai was strong, swift, and disciplined, capable of wielding a sword with lightning speed or loosing arrows with deadly accuracy. And it was all achieved through traditional drills and iron dedication, long before modern fitness science. Vikings up in the cold north, The Viking warriors of early medieval Europe had no formal military academies, but they didn't need them. Their entire way of life was a training program for strength and endurance. Consider a young Viking farmer. His daily chores might include swinging an axe to fell trees, splitting logs for firewood, carrying heavy buckets of water, and plowing fields by hand. These everyday tasks built the raw, functional strength needed for combat. Farming hardened their bodies, as did seafaring. Rowing a Viking longship across rough seas demanded immense upper body and core strength. A crew of Vikings could row for hours on end, a feat of endurance that rivaled any modern cardio workout. When they weren't laboring or voyaging, Vikings kept themselves sharp with sports and combat games. Historical accounts suggest Viking boys learned to handle swords, axes, and spears early, often by play fighting with older warriors. They held contests of skill, throwing spears for distance, testing accuracy with archery, and wrestling for dominance. Glima, Norse wrestling matches were popular at gatherings to see who was the strongest. They also raced each other on foot and in swimming contests, and would challenge one another to lift heavy stones to prove their might. Life in the Viking Age itself built tough fighters. The harsh climate meant every Norseman was accustomed to discomfort. Soaking rains, freezing winters, long voyages at sea, trekking over mountains or trudging through snow with gear made their legs sturdy and lungs strong. And of course, real combat was the ultimate test. Only the fittest and fiercest survived repeated battles. Without a formal drill sergeant, the demands of survival naturally produced warriors who were truly fearsome. The Vikings developed strength through labor, endurance through adventure, and ferocity through sheer necessity, all with no need for a modern gym. Medieval knights. As the Viking era waned, medieval Europe saw the rise of the armored knight, a warrior trained through years of apprenticeship. The making of a knight started in boyhood. Around age 7, a noble boy would be sent to live in a lord's castle as a page. This wasn't idle babysitting. Pages served the lord, learned courtly manners, and began basic physical training. A page might practice riding ponies, fight with wooden swords and shields, and play at mock combat to build balance and coordination. After several years, in his early teens, the boy would become a squire assigned to a knight. Now the real training began. A squire's life was full of physical challenges. He followed his knight everywhere, which meant lots of heavy lifting, carrying armor, weapons, and equipment while on the move. This alone built strength and endurance. Lugging a steel breastplate, helmet, and sword around all day is no small feat. Each day, the squire trained in combat skills. Swordsmanship drills were mandatory. A squire might spend hours striking a wooden post with his sword to develop power and precision in each blow. He trained with a shield as well, learning to block and maneuver while weighted down. For mounted combat, squires practiced jousting techniques using the quintain, charging it with a lance to improve aim and stability on horseback. They also learned to wrestle and fight with daggers for the unfortunate moments when a knight might be unhorsed or disarmed. Over time, a squire's body adapted to these demands. Arms strong from sword swinging, legs and core toughened from riding, and the whole body hardened by training in armor. Medieval writings confirm that knights were expected to exercise to stay in fighting shape. Knights often went hunting on horseback, which doubled as sport and training, forcing them to ride hard and throw spears or shoot arrows at game. They engaged in mock battles at tournaments, where melee fights and jousts could be just as exhausting as real combat. Some knights even took up dancing to improve their footwork and stamina. Others practiced throwing heavy stones to build sheer power. By the time a squire was finally dubbed a knight, around age 21, he was effectively a human tank, strong enough to run or climb in full armor, skilled with sword and lance, and tempered by years of rigorous training. The knight's fitness program was simple. Use what you have, train hard, and be prepared for the brutal trials of battle. Mongols. On the vast steppes of Central Asia, the Mongols proved you could conquer the world with a training regimen as big as the outdoors. From a very young age, Mongol children were taught the skills of war, which were the same skills needed for their nomadic life. Horsemanship came first. Toddlers were set on gentle horses, and by age 3 or 4, many kids could ride solo. Growing up in the saddle meant a Mongol's legs, core, and balance developed remarkably well. They practically lived on horseback, herding animals and traveling great distances across the plains. Next came archery. As soon as a boy was strong enough to draw a bow, his training would begin. Mongol composite bows required great strength to pull, so youths built up their muscles over years of practice. They trained to shoot both from the ground and while riding. A Mongol archer learned to control his horse with his knees, leaving his hands free to knock and release arrows even at full gallop. They became masters of the Parthian shot, twisting backward on a galloping horse to hit pursuers. After countless hours of such practice, an adult Mongol warrior could accurately shoot in any direction at high speed. The Mongols also valued raw strength and dexterity, honed through rigorous play and competition. Wrestling, Mongolian bok, was a favorite pastime in camp. With no weight classes, technique and power decided the victor, and wrestling built robust muscles and stamina. They also held epic horse races and archery contests, so even leisure time doubled as training time. Nomadic life itself was constant training. Mongol clans moved often, packing up entire camps. Lifting yurt frames and hauling supplies built strength. Hunting on the open range forced them to ride hard and shoot on the move, pushing their endurance. They also learned to survive on little food and sleep when necessary. On campaign, Mongol armies famously covered astonishing distances, sometimes over 100 miles in a day, by each rider having several horses and switching mounts. Such stamina was only possible after a lifetime of constant riding and outdoor living. Without any gyms, this lifestyle of movement, competition, and adaptation forged warriors with phenomenal endurance. The Mongols showed that growing up riding, roping, shooting, and wrestling could produce an army that outclassed almost every opponent of its time. Beneath all these stories runs a common thread. Training was woven into daily life. Ancient warriors didn't need special equipment. They used their own body weight, simple tools, and the world around them to grow strong. They built muscle by swinging weapons or lifting loads, endurance by marching and riding, agility by sparring and dancing, and toughness by braving pain and harsh climates. Most of all, they had dedication. Whether enduring a Spartan whipping or perfecting Mongol archery, these fighters committed fully to becoming battle-ready. It just goes to show that you don't need a modern gym to get fit, just relentless practice, resilience, and the will to win.